Thank you, Eliana. We'll go to Mr. Brad Sherman from California.
Mr. Chairman, the two most powerful forces in the Syria, Iraq, Lebanon area are the Shiite alliance in Iran on the one hand and the extremist Sunnis on the other. What we've seen our friends Saudi Arabia and others do is move toward what they'll accept as, quote, moderate Islam or acceptable Islam and embrace the Brotherhood, Turkey, Qatar, and perhaps even al-Nusra, which is, after all, part of al-Qaeda. Had we done more to strengthen the more reasonable Sunnis earlier in the process, perhaps Saudi Arabia would not be taking that action. The good news is there's been reports in the last half hour that the #2 commander in ISIS has been killed. I hope that's true. We'll see. Mr. Chairman, you commented that ISIS has all this Iraqi currency. Iraq should, of course, issue new currency, making its own currency invalid. Many countries have done this. This is a process that is hated by corrupt politicians and drug dealers with large amounts of currency of their own. And, of course, the Iraqi government has failed to do so, which leads to the possible conclusion that perhaps corrupt politicians with huge stashes of cash have some power in Baghdad. This Congress passed the Near East South Central Asia Religious Freedom Act. That required that the State Department have a special envoy for religious minorities in that region. We are still waiting for someone to be appointed. Do not hold your breath. The attitude of the administration toward following laws just because they're laws is less than I think it ought to be. Speaking of laws passed by Congress, we authorized $1.6 billion in NADA to counter ISIL. This included, the authorization was amended to include provisions for local security forces on the Nineveh Plain, including Assyrian and Yazidi forces. So far, that hasn't happened. Of course, communities that cannot defend themselves are in a difficult circumstance on the Nineveh Plain. One of our witnesses has been unabashed in support of the Kurdish government, Ms. Isaacs. I had in my office yesterday representatives of the Yazidi, Assyrian, and Kurdish communities that took a very different view of the Kurdish government. Perhaps a balance between the two is that the Kurdish government has provided sanctuary, but has not allowed these groups to form their own National Guard battalions. And no group on the Nineveh Plain is going to be safe unless they have their own National Guard. Mr. Chairman, I would like to see us bring to testify before this committee one of the Yazidi women who has successfully fled from ISIS. This would require that the State Department provide an entry visa, and if the woman or girl was coming from Kurdish areas, we would need to get an exit visa from that government.
Mr. Sherman, just if I could interrupt for a minute. We did have a young Yazidi woman, a young girl, slated to testify. She had to drop off of the trip because of health reasons. But we will achieve your goal here, and I'll relinquish the time back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed. Ms. Kamawat, minorities are being given the choice: convert, flee, die, or pay a very unfair tax. Now, I put 3 of those in one category. The jizya is something that Muslim governments have imposed upon the minority communities for centuries, and in prior centuries it has been a tax that was endurable. Of course, it's outrageous and unfair. Is ISIS imposing a tax that is outrageous, unfair, but is a practical thing that the communities could pay, or is it just an excuse for them to say, well, we want to confiscate everything on Monday. That's your Monday tax, and on Tuesday you don't have anything left, so we're going to kill you. Is ISIS offering to allow at least Christians, the Yazidis, of course, would be treated differently under their rules, a chance to stay in their homes and pay a tax consistent with what is possible? Of course, it's outrageous.
Just talking about Syria, in Raqqa, where the ISIS has full control, most of the Christians fled out. There's not many Christians now in the ISIS control area like Manbij or Raqqa. Mm-hmm. The one they're in hide. They did say that they're asking for jizya, and it happened a few times, but I think there is not many Christians in this area. They're already gone. And in other things, the Christians now, they're all in Aleppo or stayed in Idlib and others. They've been away. But where there's been now, where there is the moderate Muslims control, they're not being asked for any jizya because they treat them as an equal citizen. Thank you.
I believe my time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Mr. Dana Rohrabacher of California.